Hello and welcome to Basics for Gamers presents Pathfinder Magic Part 1, Traditions and Schools. This is the first part in a long requested series that will examine the full set of spellcasting rules in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. In this first video, we're going to lay a foundation for the series, and this will be followed by crunchier topics in the weeks to come. To fully understand magic in Pathfinder, you need to know how schools of magic, the four essences of magic, and magical traditions all work together to form a foundation for spellcasting. Schools of magic are simply a way to group similar spells together. All spells belong to one of the 8 schools of magic, and you can think of a school as being similar to a single field of study or expertise. Wizards in particular can choose to specialize in one specific school of magic, or can choose not to specialize at all and be a universalist. The 8 schools of magic are Abjuration. These spells are all about defense, magic shields and circles of runes that evil creatures cannot cross. A few example spells are Shield, Alarm, and Mage Armor. The second school is Conjuration. This school is about making things appear or disappear out of thin air. Although most commonly associated with summoning spells, the school of Conjuration also covers teleportation. Floating Disc, Create Water, and Summon Elemental are all Conjuration spells. The third school is Divination. These spells are about revealing information. It could be visions of the past or future, or watching events unfold from a continent away. Detect Magic, See Invisible, and Clairvoyance are all divination spells. The fourth school is Enchantment. In Pathfinder, enchantment spells have nothing to do with crafting or turning weapons magical. Instead, this school is about manipulating the mind, either controlling them or inspiring them to feats of greatness. Some examples include Bless, Command, and Confusion. The fifth school is Evocation. Evocation magic channels energy and makes things go boom. Light, Divine Lance, and of course Fireball are all evocation spells. The sixth school is Illusion. These schools probably do exactly what you expect. They fool the senses. Blur, Invisibility, and Silence are all illusion spells. The seventh school is Necromancy, which is the power of life and death. And do not mistake necromancy for being inherently evil, as it's not just the school of death, but also of life. Chill Touch, Heal, and Remove Curse are all necromancy spells. And the final school of magic is Transmutation. These spells alter the physical shape and form of creatures and objects. Animal Form, Enlarge, and Mending are all transmutation spells. Magical traditions describe the source of the spell and also provide some narrative description as to how the spell is cast. Unlike schools where each spell belongs to one and only one school, spells may belong to several different traditions. They would be the same level and have the same mechanics, but might be flavored slightly differently. Also, each tradition has its own spell list. A spell list shows which spells at each level are available to each spellcaster. A character who has the Arcane Spellcasting class ability is able to cast spells from the Arcane Tradition's spell list, and only spells found on that list unless they gain access to another tradition, such as with multi-class archetypes. And gone are the days of spell lists being dictated entirely by class. 2nd edition has simplified things by having only 4 traditions and therefore only 4 spell lists, but also allows greater flexibility in allowing some classes to choose between which spell list they want to use. For example, sorcerers get to choose from any of the 4 traditions depending on what their bloodline is. The 4 traditions are Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal. I tend to think of arcane magic as sort of like magical science. Those who practice this form of magic do so after years of study. They conduct extensive research, pore over massive tomes, and see a kind of order to magical energies that they can manipulate. Wizards are the most iconic of the arcane spellcasters. Divine spells represent the power of the gods and is often represented as the character praying to their god and asking them to bless or smite their target, or they're a physical conduit to channel the wrath of their god. Divine magic could also manifest from celestial bloodlines, such as sorcerers who may have angelic or infernal blood running through their veins. Clerics and oracles are both divine spellcasters. Primal magic deals with the natural world, plants, animal, the weather. Primal magic is the realm of druids, shamans, and sorcerers who belong to fae and beast bloodlines. And last is the occult tradition. I find that occult magic is the most difficult to explain. The core rulebook explains occult magic like this. The practitioners of occult traditions seek to understand the unexplainable, categorize the bizarre, and otherwise access the ephemeral in a systematic way. And when I read that to players, their response is always the same. They look at me and they say, "So what does that mean?" Well, occult magic is the realm of witches, hags, cosmic entities, bizarre and unfathomable beings like great old ones and aboleths, and also spirits, haunted houses, and many creatures with the aberration trait. One of my players has even taken to calling this spooky magic. And in most cases, I think spooky magic sums up occult magic pretty nicely. But bards also practice occult magic, and they're not typically considered to be spooky. And this leads one of my groups to refer to occultism as other magic. As in, we know there's arcane magic, divine magic, and primal magic, and if it doesn't fit into one of those easier to understand traditions, then it's occult or other magic. Whether you want to think of it as occult or spooky or other magic, just know that this form of magic is primarily practiced by bards, witches, and some sorcerers with the aberrant and hag bloodlines. In addition to the traditions and the 8 schools of magic, there are also 4 essences of magic. Commonly held beliefs in Golarion says that all of existence in reality is composed of some combination of 4 essences: matter, spirit, mind, and life. The essence of matter, or material essence, deals with the physical world. Spells that belong to the conjuration, evocation, and transmutation schools draw their power from the material essence. The essence of spirit deals with the soul, or the non-material and immortal parts that make up a living being. The schools of divination and necromancy can draw from the spiritual essence. The mind essence allows thinking creatures to have rational thoughts and animals to behave on instinct. Spells that use the mind essence are usually found in the divination, enchantment, and illusion schools. And the life essence represents the animating universal force within all living things. Whereas matter provides the base materials for a body, life keeps it alive and well. Most spells that draw from the life essence belong to the school of necromancy. Now, the reason why it's helpful for players to know about the 4 essences is because each tradition focuses on exactly 2 of these. And understanding that relationship will help shed light on what kind of spells each tradition and their spellcasters excel with. The arcane tradition focuses on the matter and mind essences, and therefore the arcane spell list has lots of options from the schools of conjuration, divination, enchantment, evocation, illusion, and transmutation. In other words, arcane spellcasters have a very, very broad selection of spells, but are extremely limited when it comes to necromancy. They're not very well equipped with healing magic. That's not to say a wizard can't cast some necromancy spells or even specialize in the school of necromancy, just that there are fewer of those spells available than with some of the other schools. The divine tradition is the polar opposite of the arcane tradition in that the divine spell list focuses on the spirit and life essences, which isn't to say that they don't have spells of the other schools, but divine casters really shine when it comes to matters of healing and the immortal soul. The occult tradition focuses on the spirit and mind essences. Therefore, we can expect that bards and witches excel at inspiring their allies and demoralizing their foes. And last, the primal tradition is the opposite of the occult tradition in that it primarily deals with the matter and life essences. So druids have more spells that focus on manipulating the physical realm, like growing claws, summoning animals, or manipulating the weather, as well as spells that enhance life energy that flows through all living beings, and that includes healing magic. So you can see each of the essences are associated with one or more school of magic, and each tradition specializes in two of these essences, and no two traditions are influenced by the same two essences. From here, we can get an idea of which schools of magic are dominant for each of the different traditions. And if you're curious about the school of abjuration magic, don't worry, that school is not left out. Instead, it applies to all of the essences and traditions, depending on what is being protected or what creature or effect the spellcaster is defending against. This video has served to form a foundation to help understand how magic is organized within Pathfinder. And in the next part of this series, we will dive into topics such as prepared versus spontaneous spellcasting, spell slots, and heightening spells. Before we close, I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons. These videos would not be possible without their continued generosity and support. Members of the Basics for Gamers Patreon community receive special benefits, like getting to vote on the topics that we cover in the future, and also they get to see these videos 1 week and ad-free before everybody else. Visit the link shown on the left of the screen and in the description if you'd like to know more about becoming a patron. If you would like to support this channel and help it grow, the easiest way to do that is by subscribing and clicking the bell icon so you get notified when new videos release. And we can always be reached through our Twitter and Facebook pages too. Thanks for watching, take care, and we will see you soon with more Basics of Pathfinder.